Hey everybody, welcome to the Rouge Radio Podcast, CFL Trade episode 16. Before we get to the video, please hit the subscribe button below so to make sure that whenever that we put out with any kind of content, it goes directly to your YouTube account. In today's episode, we're going to show you how the Edmonton Elks acquiring Fred Perry led to them to making the biggest trade, and not necessarily the best one, possibly the worst one, in Edmonton Elks history that did not involve Ricky Ray. In 2007, the Saskatchewan Roughriders won their third Grey Cup in franchise history over their prairie rivals, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and they recorded a record amount of profits. General Manager Eric Tillman said, "Hey, you know what would make that even bigger news and a bigger situation is if we spent less." Yeah, that's right. They wanted to spend less on the roster. And then they traded their 2007 MVP in Kerry Joseph. But we've dealt with that trade, didn't we, in episode 3? And they also made another trade. A guy by the name of Fred Perry. Now, Fred Perry is a guy that was an integral part of that 07 Grey Cup team. And he just wanted a raise. He said, "I was a big part of that 07 team. Give me a raise." Tillman said, "No." And Fred Perry said, "Yes, or trade me." And Eric Tillman said, "Sure. You're on Edmonton." And Fred Perry said, "Huh. Oh." And the trade was made. The Saskatchewan Roughriders sent defensive end Fred Perry and a second-round pick in 2008 to the Edmonton Elks. In exchange, the Edmonton Elks sent a 2008 second-round pick and backup quarterback Stephen Giles. Now, obviously, it's part of the title. You know that this pertains to the Edmonton Elks. So why don't we just start with the Saskatchewan Roughriders kind of thing. So let's start off this video. Stephen Giles, okay, didn't have a name value at this time, but he was a backup quarterback. Eventually, Edmonton would reacquire Jason Moss to back up Ricky Ray. So you knew that Stephen Giles, that if they were going to get that opportunity, it wasn't going to be in Edmonton. So when Saskatchewan came calling, he said, "This is my number one shot." But they gave the ball to Marcus Crandall. Great. He got injured. Stephen Giles' opportunity. He got injured. But then, the Saskatchewan loves this because in comes unheralded future starter Darian Durant, who got injured and couldn't get it done. And then Saskatchewan went out and then acquired Michael Bishop, which a lot of Rider fans are not going to want to talk about that at all. And we're not going to. We're going to save you for this time only. Stephen Giles would eventually leave Saskatchewan, but not by trade. He would actually get traded twice over in the next couple of years, but this one, we're not going to even talk about that one because he left by free agency to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and that branch is done. The second round pick in 2008, the Saskatchewan Roughriders selected offensive lineman Jonathan St. Pierre. A lot of hype coming out of the CIS, and just wasn't going to get that opportunity when Saskatchewan. They had a lot of beef on that offensive line, and it was just going to take a miraculous effort for him to crack the starting lineup. So, in a couple of years, he was traded to the Toronto Argonauts in exchange for receiver Obade Statut, who just had about as much production as St. Pierre, and before leaving the sport of football altogether. So, Saskatchewan's side of thing, all done. Easy peasy. Let's go to Edmonton's side of thing. Fred Perry, after the 2008 season, was traded to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in exchange for defensive back Kelly Malvo. Both had productive seasons in 2009. Both didn't play football at all past the 2009 season, so that branch is there. It leads us to the 2008 second-round pick. Did Edmonton use it? No. In the history of these trade trees, Edmonton, and very rarely do they come out looking very great in these trade trees, and if they do, it's because they have rostered players. When they have a draft pick, they never really use it. This is no different. The Edmonton Elks sent a second-round pick and a first-round pick to the Calgary Stampeders prior to the draft in exchange for a third-round and a second-round pick in the same draft. We're not done. Edmonton actually also got receiver Kevin Challenger and offensive lineman John Comiskey. So, you gave up a first and second. You got an offensive lineman, a Canadian receiver, and 2 draft picks. Edmonton, I'll be honest, Edmonton, on paper, Edmonton kicked ass in this trade. We're not going to talk about the fact that Calgary selected Dimitri Sumpas with the first round pick. But this is a deep draft at this time. Edmonton did really well. And the fact they got 2 roster players. But, as we always discuss, this is all depends on what you do with those assets. And Jonathan Comiskey, well, he joined his brother Dan Comiskey on the 08 Edmonton Elks roster. And it was okay. Yeah, it was okay. Played a lot in 08, played a lot in 09, and didn't play after that. Ooh, with Kevin Challenger. Yeah, he just recently drafted by the Calgary Stampeders. He was going to be the next Kamal Peterson, which they knew they was not going to retain him after this year. Kevin Challenger had very limited production. Only had 1 catch for 8 yards. Not good. And he didn't play past the 09 season. Alright. So the roster players didn't work out well. How about the draft picks? Did they work out? Well, the 3rd round pick, which was 19th overall in 2008, the Edmonton Elks selected offensive lineman Tim St. Pierre. Okay, well, there's some value in that one. Played a couple of seasons with Edmonton. In fact, he was actually Edmonton's nominee for most outstanding special teams in 2010. Great deal. He didn't get traded. He left after the 2011 season, so we're not talking about him at this point, are we? So let's talk about that 2nd round pick, which was 11th overall in 2008. The Edmonton Elks selected offensive lineman Greg Wood. A lot of things are triggering right now because you've talked about Greg Wood, haven't you, Dalts? Yes, we have. And we're going to regurgitate this fact here. Greg Wood has a lot of accolades. Multiple most outstanding linemen, multiple all-star accolades, multiple CFL and divisional all-star accolades. The funny thing is, a good chunk of those were not with Edmonton. No, and this, let's go back because the first trade, okay, it's contractual. Edmonton did well on it. They gave away a backup quarterback. They got a premier defensive lineman. And they swapped draft picks. Okay, they might have stepped up a couple of spots, but it's still pretty decent. Oh, but what they got with that Calgary trade. On paper, it kicked ass. It didn't work out, but sometimes hindsight's 20/20. On paper, it looked great. I don't remember what the 2013 trade was like. Is what my mind was running to. Hindsight's 20/20, definitely, but this has got to be the worst trade in Edmonton Elks history that does not involve Ricky Ray. In 2013, the Edmonton Elks packaged Greg Wood with linebacker Simone Lawrence and quarterback Jeremiah Mazzoli and sent them to the Hamilton Tiger Cats in exchange for linebacker Nathan Kanya and offensive lineman Carson Rockhill. Okay, let's forget what we know now. At this time, these people are just running into the league. Okay, Greg Wood's a 4 or 5 year veteran. Simone Lawrence at the time is a 2-year veteran. Same with Mazzoli. Okay, Hamilton's betting on potential. Edmonton is getting the guy that hasn't played in the CFL at all, and Rockhill and Nathan Kanya, special teams guy. Okay, they get term. Carson Rockhill had a lot of potential. Big brute guy coming into the pros. Never played a game. Never played a game. In fact, I don't even know if he was practice rostered. I'm sure there's Edmonton Elk fans that would probably come to my defense and say, hey, no, he played a game. And if he did, it was very insignificant. Nathan Kanya left the Edmonton Elks to the Saskatchewan Roughriders as a free agent. Edmonton really sucked at this trade. This trade tree had so much potential. And it just ended, it just blew up in their face. Well, that's how you can lose a trade tree very quick. That'll do it for this week's videos. Pay attention to this channel. We got a lot more videos coming through. And big news out of CFL. If you haven't heard by now, you've been living under a rock. The CFL is coming back. Get your double backs. Get your double doses if you want to attend the CFL games. Teams, I know that's a double standard sometimes with the, in regards to the players and the fans and employees, but take the route the Bombers are doing. They're only allowing fans in the stands if you're double vaccinated. If you want to enjoy the CFL, if you really generally care about human nature and you are wanting to support the Canadian Football League like you've been saying that you wanted to in the last 16, 17 months, if you aren't already, get those 2 dabs. Get those 2 doses. Please. I'm begging you. CFL needs it. Just as much as I need the CFL. Not gonna lie. That'll do it for this week's video. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Hit like. Comment below if you have any feature suggestions. Again, if you have any feature suggestions and you don't want it to be labeled over here through YouTube, feel free to reach me out on Twitter. You can reach me at Rouge Dalts. My podcast is available at Rouge Radio. And of course, this video is powered by the Canadian Football Podcast Network at CF Pod Network on Twitter.